Kayleigh McEnany, Laura Ingraham, and James Comer have each taken strong stances on various controversies surrounding former President Barack Obama, often pushing the envelope in their critiques. As a former White House press secretary, McEnany has never hesitated to call out what she views as media bias in favor of Obama, particularly regarding his handling of the Affordable Care Act and the narratives surrounding it. Laura Ingraham, a prominent conservative commentator, has been a fierce critic of Obama's immigration policies, especially his executive actions like DACA, which she argues bypassed Congress and set a dangerous precedent. James Comer, a leading Republican congressman, has scrutinized Obama's role in the Fast and Furious operation, questioning the administration's transparency and the decisions that led to the tragic loss of life. Together, McEnany, Ingraham, and Comer have kept the spotlight on these controversies, ensuring that debates over Obama's legacy remain active and contentious.
Well, I think what you're seeing in the public is an absolute lack of confidence in the federal government to look out for the interests of the average American. And so Paul Ryan's using the language of Obama when he said we're not going to have a religious test. I think that doesn't sit well with people, because you're now using the language of the left to advocate for a new Republican way forward. So it's nice that we have a pause. But I think what most people are looking for, and I think all the polling on this shows that this is the case.
Kayleigh McEnany, Laura Ingraham, and James Comer have been vocal critics of former President Barack Obama, each taking on different aspects of his administration that they argue were either mishandled or deliberately misleading. These figures have focused on some of the most contentious moments of Obama's presidency, ensuring that the controversies surrounding his time in office remain central to political discourse.
I've not spoken to the president about that, but who I did speak to about President Obama and unmasking Michael Flynn were the men and women in this room. I haven't spoken to him on that specific point, have spoken to him about the matter generally, and I laid out a series of questions that any good journalist would want to answer about why people were unmasked, and all sorts of questions. And I just wanted to follow up and use opposition research funded by a political organization and filled with foreign dirt to surveil members of the Trump campaign.
Kayleigh McEnany, known for her role as White House press secretary under President Donald Trump, has often taken aim at the way the media covered Barack Obama. One of the key areas she has highlighted is the Affordable Care Act, ACA, commonly known as Obamacare. McEnany has argued that the media was complicit in downplaying the flaws and failures of the ACA while it was being promoted by the Obama administration. One of the most controversial aspects of Obamacare was the promise made by Obama that, if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. This statement, repeated numerous times during the promotion of the ACA, turned out to be misleading, as millions of Americans received cancellation notices from their insurance companies because their plans did not meet the new requirements set by the law. McEnany has pointed out that this broken promise was a significant betrayal to the American people, yet the media, according to her, largely gave Obama a pass. She has often referenced the fact that PolitiFact, a fact-checking organization, named the "If You Like Your Plan, You Can Keep It" promise as the lie of the year in 2013. McEnany uses this as an example of how the media eventually had to acknowledge the deception, but only after the law had already been passed and its effects were being felt. McEnany's critiques focus not just on Obama, but on the role the media played in shaping public perception of his policies. She argues that the favorable coverage Obama received, particularly in the early years of his presidency, allowed him to push through controversial measures like the ACA without facing the level of scrutiny that other politicians might have encountered. Laura Ingraham, a prominent conservative commentator and host of The Ingraham Angle on Fox News, has been a fierce critic of Obama's immigration policies. One of the most significant and controversial aspects of Obama's approach to immigration was the creation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA program. DACA was established through an executive order in 2012 and allowed certain undocumented immigrants who were brought to the United States as children to remain in the country without fear of deportation. Ingram has argued that DACA was an overreach of executive power, bypassing Congress to implement a policy that should have been decided through the legislative process. She contends that Obama's use of executive orders in this manner set a dangerous precedent for future presidents, allowing them to unilaterally make significant policy changes without the input of Congress. Ingram has also criticized the broader implications of DACA, arguing that it incentivized illegal immigration by sending a message that those who entered the country illegally could eventually receive legal status. This, she believes, contributed to the surge in unaccompanied minors and family units crossing the border in the years following the implementation of DACA. Ingram has frequently highlighted the human cost of Obama's immigration policies, pointing to cases where criminal undocumented immigrants who were shielded by DACA or other policies went on to commit violent crimes. These cases, she argues, are a direct result of the Obama administration's failure to enforce immigration laws and its prioritization of political agendas over public safety.
You met with President Obama after the election.
Yeah, he held me back after one of the very last meetings I had with him after the election, and he said, "But I want to just tell you something generally. I appointed you to be FBI director because of your integrity and your ability." And then he looked me in the eye and he said, "Nothing has happened, nothing, in the last year that has changed my view of that." And look, he wasn't telling me, "I agree with what you did." He wasn't telling me you made the right decision. He was telling me, "I know where it came from. I know you're not a partisan hack. I know you're trying to do the right thing." And it meant a lot to me. I mean, I had not been a political supporter of President Obama's. I came to deeply respect him and his higher loyalty to the values I care a lot about. And I almost got emotional in that moment because, again, I've been walking around like Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, and have the President of the United States say, "I still respect you for the reasons I did originally," meant a lot to me.
James Comer, a Republican congressman from Kentucky, has taken a particular interest in the Fast and Furious scandal, one of the most controversial incidents of the Obama administration. Operation Fast and Furious was a botched gun-walking operation conducted by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF. The operation intended to track the movement of firearms sold to suspected straw purchasers who were believed to be working on behalf of Mexican drug cartels. However, the operation went disastrously wrong when the ATF lost track of hundreds of firearms, many of which ended up in the hands of criminals. 2 of the guns from the operation were found at the scene of a shootout in 2010 that resulted in the death of U.S. Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. Comer has been a vocal critic of how the Obama administration handled the fallout from Fast and Furious. He has questioned the transparency of the administration, particularly in its refusal to release certain documents related to the operation. The scrutiny applied by Kayleigh McEnany, Laura Ingraham, and James Comer to Barack Obama's presidency highlights a broader conservative effort to challenge the narratives surrounding his time in office. Through their persistent critiques of the Affordable Care Act, DACA, and the Fast and Furious scandal, these figures have emphasized the importance of transparency, accountability, and adherence to the rule of law. Their efforts ensure that the controversies of Obama's administration are not forgotten, but remain integral to the ongoing debate about his legacy. Whether viewed as necessary watchdogs or partisan critics, McEnany, Ingraham, and Comer have undeniably shaped the discourse on Obama's presidency, leaving a lasting impact on how these issues are understood and remembered. In a political landscape where debates often turn fiery, Jim Jordan, Jesse Watters, and Mark Levin have never shied away from controversy, especially when it comes to former President Barack Obama. Each of these figures, with their unique style and fervent base, has tackled Obama's legacy, policies, and actions head-on, often igniting fierce discussions. Jim Jordan, known for his relentless questioning in congressional hearings, has repeatedly challenged the Obama administration's decisions, particularly regarding the IRS scandal and the handling of the Benghazi attack. His pointed inquiries have led to heated exchanges and accusations of political bias, leaving a lasting mark on how these incidents are perceived. Jesse Watters, with his sharp commentary on Fox News, has often criticized Obama's foreign policy, particularly the Iran nuclear deal, claiming it undermined American security. Watters's controversial takes, coupled with his on-the-street interviews, have sparked debates about media responsibility and bias.
You just keep everybody apart. That's what it looks like. If you put them all in the room together and lock the door, only one person comes out, and it's probably Michelle. My mother texted me after the speeches last night, and she said, "Are you a Democrat yet?" This is what I'm dealing with. The Obamas can fool a lot of people, but they can't fool me. Yes, it was a persuasive speech. Yes, it was very powerful. Of course, it was well crafted. But in order to buy what they're selling, you have to be completely oblivious to political reality.
Mark Levin, a constitutional scholar and radio host, has been one of Obama's harshest critics. Levin has consistently argued that Obama's use of executive orders and actions, particularly on immigration and healthcare, overstepped constitutional boundaries. His passionate monologues have fueled ongoing discussions about the limits of presidential power. Together, these figures have kept Obama's legacy in the spotlight, ensuring that the controversies surrounding his presidency continue to be a topic of national debate. Jim Jordan, Jesse Watters, and Mark Levin have built reputations as relentless critics of former President Barack Obama. Each has played a significant role in shaping the narrative surrounding various controversies during Obama's administration, often stirring intense debate among the public and within political circles.
For simply stating the truth that the Obama-Biden administration spied on the Trump campaign. 1 year ago, New York Times headline said this, 1 year ago, quote, FBI sent investigator posing as assistant to meet with Trump aide in 2016. The FBI sent a young lady who used the name Azra Turk to meet Papadopoulos in September of 2016.
Jim Jordan, a prominent Republican congressman, has long been a thorn in the side of Democrats. His aggressive questioning style and sharp focus on what he perceives as governmental overreach have made him a significant figure in congressional hearings. One of the most controversial incidents involving Jordan was his involvement in the investigation of the IRS scandal during the Obama administration. The scandal erupted when it was revealed that the IRS had been targeting conservative groups for extra scrutiny when they applied for tax-exempt status. This targeting was seen by many as an attempt to silence political opposition, leading to a fierce backlash. Jordan was at the forefront of the investigation, relentlessly pursuing the truth behind the IRS's actions. He questioned former IRS official Lois Lerner, who became the face of the scandal after she invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Jordan's relentless pursuit of answers kept the scandal in the headlines for months. He accused the Obama administration of using the IRS as a political weapon, a charge that resonated deeply with conservative voters. The investigation into the IRS's actions was a significant moment in Jordan's career, solidifying his reputation as a fierce defender of conservative principles. However, it also drew criticism from Democrats who accused Jordan of using the investigation to score political points rather than seeking the truth. Jesse Watters, known for his work on Fox News, has made a name for himself with his brash and often controversial style of journalism. Watters first gained widespread attention as a correspondent on The O'Reilly Factor, where he became known for his Watters World segments. These segments often featured Watters interviewing people on the street, sometimes in a provocative or mocking manner. Watters has been a vocal critic of Obama, particularly regarding the former president's foreign policy decisions. One of the most controversial incidents involving Watters and Obama was his coverage of the Iran nuclear deal. The deal, which was one of Obama's signature foreign policy achievements, aimed to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. Watters was highly critical of the deal, arguing that it was a dangerous appeasement of a hostile regime. He suggested that Obama was too willing to negotiate with Iran, putting American security at risk. Watters' coverage of the Iran deal was often laced with sarcasm and pointed criticism, which drew both praise and condemnation. Supporters of the deal accused Watters of fear-mongering and misrepresenting the facts, while his critics viewed his coverage as a necessary counterbalance to what they saw as a biased media narrative in favor of the deal. Watters' stance on the Iran deal was emblematic of his broader approach to journalism, where he often takes a strong, unapologetic stance on issues, regardless of the controversy it may cause.
There's all kinds of, based on these reports, investigative activities going on. You know, McClatchy reported the agencies involved, the FBI, CIA, National Security Agency, Justice Department, Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I assume Obama knew something. I mean, unless he's Helen Keller. Now, let me make another point about this. That's a hell of a lot of agency resources. Those are a hell of a lot of investigators. The news reports, you mentioned the New York Times, January 20th. I just want to make sure CNN and MSNBC are aware of this.
They watch all the time, Mark. Nobody's watching them. Go ahead.
Wiretap data used in inquiry of Trump aides. I never said independent of news reports.
Mark Levin, a constitutional scholar and radio host, has long been one of Obama's most vocal critics. Levin's critique of Obama is rooted in his deep belief in the Constitution and his conviction that Obama's policies represented a fundamental threat to the principles upon which the United States was founded. Levin's criticism of Obama has been wide-ranging, but one of the most significant areas of contention has been Obama's use of executive orders. During his presidency, Obama frequently used executive orders to bypass Congress, particularly on issues where he faced significant opposition from Republicans. For Levin, this represented an abuse of presidential power. He argued that Obama was acting as a dictator by using executive orders to implement policies that lacked the support of Congress. One of the most controversial executive orders issued by Obama was the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA program, which allowed certain undocumented immigrants who had been brought to the United States as children to remain in the country without fear of deportation. Levin was a staunch opponent of DACA, arguing that Obama had overstepped his constitutional authority by creating the program through executive action. He contended that immigration policy should be decided by Congress, not unilaterally by the president. Levin's opposition to DACA and other executive orders issued by Obama was a central theme of his radio show and his writings. He frequently warned that Obama's actions were setting a dangerous precedent that could be exploited by future presidents. The controversies surrounding Barack Obama's presidency are far from settled, and the voices of Jim Jordan, Jesse Watters, and Mark Levin remain influential in keeping these debates alive. Their persistent critiques have left an indelible mark on the political landscape, challenging both the policies and the legacy of one of America's most polarizing presidents. Whether viewed as defenders of constitutional principles or as provocateurs pushing a partisan agenda, Jordan, Waters, and Levin have undeniably shaped the discourse that continues to define how Obama's time in office is remembered and interpreted.
Some of you here tonight or watching at home, you were there with us in 2004 and 2008.
Jordan calls out Kamala Harris's weak leadership, highlighting her harmful agenda.
And I also think the bigger takeaway is, remember, in 3 years and 7 months, we went from a secure border to no border, and the Democrats just made the border czar their nominee. So, I mean, that's, you can do all the coronation, you can say all the wonderful things you want about Kamala Harris, but in the time that she's been in the Biden administration, we went from a secure border to no border, safe streets to record $2 gas to $4 gas, and stable prices to record inflation. So that's the record. And I might all be warm and fuzzy and great now, but that doesn't change the facts.
Jim argues that Harris is eager to raise taxes and strip away your health care, a threat to the American way of life.
And she wants to raise people's taxes.
Yeah.
If she wins the election, she wants to raise people's taxes. She wants to take away your health care and all the other left-wing ideologies and positions she has that are only going to exacerbate the already bad economy we have in the Biden-Harris administration.
The Democrats, now the party of cancel culture, have even turned on Joe Biden.
You're right. Who knows what's going to happen at this convention? And I like the term you use. Remember, the Democrats are the cancel culture party. And as you said, they just canceled Joe Biden and said, nope, we don't care that you won the primary. You had 14 million people vote for you. Sorry, we don't think you can win. So we're going with someone who we think has a chance. I don't think she's going to, based on the policy, based on the facts we have seen in the 3 years and 7 months that this administration's been in power, but they seem to think they have a better chance, and that's why you got this coronation where they make Kamala their nominee.
Under the Trump administration, we witnessed countless positive changes, a stark contrast to the current leadership.
That is ridiculous. No one's going to buy it. President Trump hasn't been in office for 3.5 years, but when he was, and when you served in that administration, we had real wages go up when we lowered the taxes on the American people, and frankly on American business. Lowering that corporate rate was huge as well, which then helps families. And every demographic in the population, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, every demographic, real wages went up, contrary to where they're at now, where the buying power, and if you take your family out to dinner, take your family out to dinner on a Friday night and see how, with inflation, what it costs just to go out to dinner with your family. It's ridiculous. So they can say all they want, but no one buys that.
Mark Levin condemns the unfair treatment of former President Trump at the NABG conference, exposing media bias.
What the National Association of Black Journalists did, particularly the ABC News moderator, so-called, was disgusting. We all watched it. She was baiting Trump. Trump was set up, and she's no reporter. You don't make accusation after accusation after accusation as if you're using the Kamala Harris talking points or the Democrat Party talking points, and then ask President Trump, when did you stop beating your wife?
If Joe Biden were present, the ABC News moderator would have avoided questioning his troubling racist and segregationist past.
I mean, it's just appalling. If Joe Biden had been sitting in that chair and he had his wits about him, say 10, 20 years ago, I don't think that organization, I don't think that ABC News moderator would have grilled him on his real racist and segregationist history. I don't think they would have given the list of the racist things that he has said throughout his life. I don't think they would have mentioned his association with the 6 Southern racist segregationists, all of whom filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Kamala Harris would have received the same soft treatment as Biden, highlighting the media's double standards.
They would never have done that to him, nor do I think if Kamala Harris was sitting there, they would have said to her, this is Joe Biden's record when he first came into the Senate. How could you be his running mate after during the debate, you challenged him on his opposition to integrating public schools through busing?
In today's America, the media turns lies into truth and truth into lies, distorting reality for their own agenda.
And so this is how the media in America work. This is how ABC News work. This is how they all work. That is, a lie becomes the truth and the truth becomes a lie. It's called propaganda. It's called propaganda. Let me give you some examples. Why didn't the ABC News host start a questioning by mentioning the First Step Act under Donald Trump? 90% of those who had their sentences reduced under the First Step Act were black. How come she didn't mention that he supported and instituted an act that shortened mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent? Most of those individuals who were in jail were black.
James Comer blasts Kamala Harris, claiming her VP tenure has only fueled inflation by backing Democrat agendas.
It's the Biden-Harris administration, so we've heard Kamala Harris, when she was a candidate for president, say that she was against fracking, she was against drilling, she was against fossil fuels in general. That's not popular in swing states like Pennsylvania. It's not popular with the American people who are having to pay more for gasoline than they did when Donald Trump was president. Her record as borders are has been abysmal. I mean, our borders wide open, which has led to an influx of population that's drained our public school dollars. It's drained our Medicaid dollars. It's increased.
Comer argues that Kamala's legacy as VP is as empty as the promises she supports, with inflation being her only real contribution.
And look, I don't think there's anything Kamala Harris has done but add to inflation, because she supported every Democrat policy that Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer have stuffed down the throats of the American people in the name of, and after, when they wanted to pass their so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which actually increased inflation. And that's what every American's most upset about, I think, this election, is the fact that every time they go to the grocery store, it costs more. Every time they go fill up their car with gas, it costs more. And that's because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
The Joe Biden family will go down in history as the most corrupt political family in the history of the United States.
I mean, look, Joe Biden's rich to talk about presidential immunity. His family will go down in history as the most corrupt political family in the history of the United States. I mean, our investigation's proven they've taken tens of millions of dollars from our adversaries around the world, and they never paid a penny of taxes on it, and Joe Biden was in on it from the start. With respect to term limits, I mean, Joe Biden's been in politics since before I was born. I mean, he comes out for term limits now on his very last breath of his political career.
The hypocrisy of Biden's career is now laid bare, as his administration's actions speak louder than their empty promises.
I've always supported term limits, by the way, and I support term limits for everyone in Washington, but I think it's pretty hypocritical that Joe Biden, whose whole career has been in politics, whose career will be stained in the history books because of the corruption of his family, now comes out with a major initiative at the very end of his term as president to prevent presidential immunity in the future and to have term limits. So I don't think the American people are buying it. It's too little, too late for Joe Biden. He's already had a career record that's been negative to the American people.
The Obama family's story is one of remarkable achievements, resilience, and public scrutiny. As the first African-American president of the United States, Barack Obama brought his family into the spotlight in a way that few others have experienced. His daughters, Malia and Sasha Obama, grew up under the unique circumstances of living in the White House, which significantly shaped their childhood and adolescent years. Their journey from Chicago to the nation's most iconic residence is a tale of adaptation, privacy struggles, and personal growth against a backdrop of unprecedented public interest. Before their transition to the White House, the Obama family was firmly rooted in Chicago.
Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, girl of the South Side. For the past 25 years, you have not only been my wife and mother of my children, you have been my best friend. You took on a role you didn't ask for, and you made it your own, with grace and with grit and with style and good humor. You made the White House a place that belongs to everybody. And the new generation sets its sights higher because it has you as a role model. So you have made me proud, and you have made the country proud.
Barack Obama, a rising star in the political world, had established himself as a state senator and later a U.S. senator. Michelle Obama, with her background in law and public service, was a successful professional in her own right. Their lives, though busy, were relatively private compared to the intense scrutiny that came with the presidency. Malia, born in 1998, and Sasha, born in 2001, were children enjoying a typical suburban life in the vibrant city of Chicago, balancing school, family activities, and growing up in an environment that was nurturing yet still shielded from the national stage. The moment Barack Obama won the 2008 presidential election, everything changed.
Stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
The Obamas' move into the White House was not just a shift in residence, but a seismic change in their daily lives. For Malia and Sasha, this meant leaving behind their familiar surroundings, friends, and school in Chicago. The transition was multifaceted. It involved adapting to a new home, adjusting to the intense public attention, and navigating the security measures that accompanied their father's new role.
Being your First Lady has been the greatest honor of my life, and I hope I've made you proud. Thank you. So for all the young people in this room and those who are watching, know that this country belongs to you, to all of you. Do not ever let anyone make you feel like you don't matter or like you don't have a place in our American story, because you do. And you have a right to be exactly who you are. I want our young people to know that they matter, that they belong,